going live. Welcome to MOBE Mondays. We are excited to have you for tonight's show. We have Mel Wilson, who will be moderating tonight's panel. And take it from here, Mel.
All right, thanks for having me. I'm going to introduce some of our panelists here. I'm going to introduce Karla Winfrey. She's a partner in Winfrey Foods. They manufacture gourmet condiment royal relish chow chow. They've actually produced that recipe since the 1930s. I'm actually a fan of it, so I did not know that before this meetup, but I will be hitting you up in the DMs about your product. Um, so thank you for spending time with us. I would like to roll to Mario Bowler Sr. He's the owner of Juneteenth Joy, a brand whose mission is to celebrate achievements and acknowledge our ancestors to serve at the intersection of economic empowerment, history, and inspiration for future generations. And I'd also like to introduce Allison Collins. She's the managing partner at Select Brands and also production member of another product that I can't get in New York. So I will be hitting you up too, Mumbo Sauce, which I'm also a fan of. So I am a foodie, if everyone can't tell already. So I'm actually excited about this from both a professional and a personal standpoint. Today's topic is really going to be how we can kind of dig into how corporations, some folks who will not be named but may have been in the news recently, how they can actually address cultural holidays and cultural marketing to African American consumers. I think it is a timely thing to talk about because you're at the intersection of, I'll just say, the timing or timeout of a lot of the pledge efforts and different things that companies were trying to do, not just from a marketing or their own brand standpoint, but the ability to support other brands, especially Black-owned brands. So I guess for our panel, I would kind of throw out the first question around, have you guys seen any pickup in interest in your brands from either the folks who carry them, either from a retail standpoint or a sponsorship standpoint, or had them kind of come to you to find out how they should market to your audiences, or did they just kind of throw programs on top of you? I guess is really the best way I can put it, because there was a lot of stuff out there the last couple of years. You're mute. I think I can hear you now.
You can?
Okay, yeah, there you go.
So I'll jump in just really quickly. I think it really kind of depends on the retailer. I think in some situations, what you typically find is that retailers have their own programs that they run annually to commemorate just different seasonal holidays. And so often, as a supplier, you are looking for opportunities to plug into those rotations and get that brand awareness and traction for your product. I think, this year, with, for example, Juneteenth being a national holiday, I'm not really sure that, it was, kind of part of what, as a new holiday, it wasn't, something that was on the schedule per se. That would have been kind of a routine holiday. And so I think many retailers were trying to figure out, what is the best way to approach it. And some of that, kind of turned into, how other typical holidays are promoted. So, for us, it has been just from the standpoint of, your earlier comment, and that being with the focus on diversity and inclusion, particularly over the last 2 years, have retailers been reaching out? So yes, for us, people have been reaching out. They have, been interested in the product. It still takes a while typically in order for your product to maybe show up on a shelf, because there is just that process. But I think in terms of how retailers are trying to figure out how to celebrate holidays that are specifically that have a specific African American focus, there's still that learning curve.
Got it. Got it. And I would agree with you. I think the learning curve is there. The piece that I'll just say I would personally like to see is I would like to see more outreach to entrepreneurs such as yourselves to kind of assist the large companies or brands along on like how they can address that and really how they can support you all, because you all are really part of the celebration of a lot of these holidays, just being that our people do a lot of celebrations around food and music, right? Like, and it feels like, well, you figured out how to do the music part, but somehow we're not being involved from the product standpoint. For some reason, you can't get all our stuff on the shelves. There's always an issue with that. Or when you're trying to support a lot of our companies, somehow the support never makes its way to you all. So I think that one-to-one connection would kind of be a better way to do it, but it seems like it's been lacking.
Agreed. And if I might say too, I think as Allison was mentioning and you as well, there's always a learning curve with these things, and retailers will tend to use the same routines, same habits, same processes for general marketing, but with any niche marketing, the process is going to be different, the language is going to be different, as well as the music, as you mentioned, particularly with something like Juneteenth, as Allison mentioned. One thing that I can say for us, and just with a little bit of context, we are a company that's barely 5 months new. And with a number of the things that went on in the marketplace leading up to Juneteenth, we were probably 2 weeks new as a brand, just being released into the market. To your question, Mel, about retailers reaching out, we haven't had retailers reaching out because we were brand new. But with everything that went on, we had consumers reaching out, those who were taking in the events of the day and of the holiday and finding out about our brand as one of the ones that was kind of in the mix of that story. We're still new, we're still kind of a third story, but we had tremendous outreach from consumers with interest in our brand, which is awesome.
Got it. And I mean, right now that's actually super important, because now I'd say we're in a place where you can kind of do outreach directly to the consumers, which kind of allows you to kind of have more leverage or position with the retailers when you kind of go talk to them about different things like marketing or how you would position, because a lot of times retailers are still stuck in the mindset that they can only position you on the physical shelves. They may also be able to position you on the digital shelves, because all of these big retailers, actually even the small mid-sized ones, they also have digital presences where they can still carry your products as well as an alternative to Amazon or one of the other big folks out there. Karla, I know we are having tech difficulties, but if there's any comments that you want to drop in while we're fixing that, drop them in the chat and I'll make sure that they're kind of called out. Wanted to move on to the next topic specifically against that, kind of expand it outwards from the holidays themselves, but just really on how to address you guys' marketing needs. Because one of the things that I have seen with a lot of businesses at multiple stages, specifically if you start as a minority-owned business, the whole marketing and I'll just say runway conversation in air quotes, runway normally is time and money, is always lacking when it comes to an investment standpoint. In the last couple of years, there have been more people who have been willing to give that to small business owners to kind of help them take a step up or help them expand their market. Have those been things where you guys have kind of gotten more assistance either from brands or partners who are kind of looking to help you grow? Or is that something where that is still something where you've kind of had to bootstrap it or figured out yourself?
Well, I think in our case, and in particular with the retailers that we typically work with, they, the expectation is that you really come to the table with some sort of marketing plan to promote your brand. And so for us, part of that is really, coming up with how we as a company are going to get the word out and get the information out about the brand and market it, whether we're going to do it on our social media platforms, if we're going to do digital advertising, or any type of in-store advertising with towards the consumer in the store. But I think it's also looking for opportunities, or at least what we typically try to do is look for opportunities where we may be able to partner with a retailer. And it could be something as simple as they may be doing some type of community outreach. They may be participating in some type of festival. And so, many of the programs that a lot of retailers generally run, you're looking at Fortune 500 companies, PCG companies. And so they have, lots of equity in their marketing budget. And so, the cost of running an ad at a retailer or doing displays sometimes can be cost prohibitive for a smaller company. But I think our experience has been that working with your buyer, excuse me, to really kind of identify, where is it that you can fit in, that really kind of is an opportunity. So it may be a niche opportunity. It may be an opportunity to do some off-shelf promoting that, where the cost of doing that may be a lot less than just kind of doling out cash for, a mega ad that's going to run in, all of their 200 or 300 stores. So I think you have to be very strategic about it and just very realistic about, excuse me, about, what you can afford to do, and then try to, establish those relationships with the buyers and determine where you may fit in on a program that they are currently running. How can you reach out and partner with them? And so it takes, some investigating on our part, because you may not know. But I think that is where, really kind of having that main line of communication with your buyer may help you with that.
Got it. I find it interesting that the demand to get these programs to businesses like yourself seem to be out there, but there is a complete disconnect between the programs and, I would say, how you guys communicate with a lot of the retailers or some of the brands. So a lot of the retailers now have their own media networks where they've carved out almost like set-asides for brands that are on the shelves, a lot of them that are either small businesses, BIPOC owned, different things like that. And for some reason, that never reaches your ears or your pockets or like your production cycle. And this need is out there to the point where they're actually putting things out in the press where it's like, well, we're looking for partners for our brand accelerator, or we're looking for partners for our media stand-up, or we want to do surveys of people who use a certain type of product. And then you have people like me who are sitting there like, well, half these folks are on your shelves. Do you talk to anybody who's putting product in your store? And it's kind of a question that's purposely asked that way, because it's not that they're not talking to you. It's the wrong people don't have access to you. So your buyer only knows what they know.
Right.
The Marcom person or whoever it is who put together this wonderful program does not talk to them at all. And most of the time, the marketing people don't even talk to the product or merchandising people. So a lot of the gaps that you might have seen over the last few years, it was because of simple things like that. Like, well, yeah, these guys made this stuff. Have you ever spoken to them, diversity or marketing people? No. Have you had them talk to the brands? No, they haven't talked to them either. So I think part of it's a comm issue, but I think part of it's also because they don't have their partner brands in the room. So to your point, P&G and all the rest of them, they're in a room somewhere with somebody, and they like things will not happen on their watch. I think the same respect and the same access probably needs to be given to a lot of the smaller brands or the growth brands where retailers don't know as much, to kind of allow you guys to learn from each other. And that would probably avoid some of the misunderstandings or even the late catches of different things. So I think there was the comment about newness into the market. If I'm running an accelerator and I'm trying to do discovery for new brands that I can make part of what I have in market, they should know about you, at least 2 to 3 months before their product window is coming up, because they're looking for you and they're trying to help you build out your business, not, afterwards like, oh yeah, it would have been great to do business with them. We'll wait till next year, because you can't really wait till next year. You need to
Right, right.
So I think that a lot of this is, I'll just say, casting that might be done wrong on the corp side, or it may be, comms about trying to get programs out to people that aren't really connecting. But I think all of that could be solved by just having the right people in the room, or I'll rephrase that: more people in the room, mainly yourselves, because you already have a relationship with the retailers, and normally that leads to some innovation. I'll just say, in my experience, I've seen that happen in the beauty and hair care spaces, where the more times they had the small manufacturers in the room, then a lot of the retailers actually started to do not always the exact right thing, but a lot closer to the right thing by their brands and then by the audiences. So they actually it led to better stuff. So I think this is probably no different.
That is so true. And we've always heard that statement of having the right people in the room. But again, being that no one is exactly the same, maybe it's having the right people in the room, the right look, the right feel, and those who are the right people by deed and by history. And again, someone that's kind of coming new into this, you mentioned exactly what I was thinking, Mel. To me, Allison and Karla would be the best people to go out to you, to go to if I were a retailer. To me, as a new company that's months new, she just laid out a roadmap for me, just without even thinking about it, as a way to market. But I think that retailers would be benefited by going back to the root. If they have a real interest, go to the root. And one of their greatest resources is their suppliers. But like you said, whether or not they tap their wisdom is a reflection on how they're doing business with them 365 days a year. Is it something that they're trying to plug in for the moment, which is telling, mm-hmm. or are they part of their central way of doing business? And I think that any retailer would minimize the gaps. They would develop their business. They would be genuine and real in reaching out to their suppliers, employees, interns, and that would be a great place for them to start. I can say from our perspective, again, as a new company, and trying to find ways to do business, because we don't have the connections with retailers. We are actually kind of at that point where we're looking for brands to collaborate with. Our initial plan was to establish the trademark for this first year, and then develop some co-branding and collaborations, and then move forward next year. But with everything that happened, as all entrepreneurs will experience, it's not on our time, it's on the creator's time. Yep. And the time for us was now. So we did have to scramble. We got, again, a tremendous amount of visibility, but now we're moving into that piece of reaching out to those targeted Black manufacturers who we want to do business with and find a way to work together.
Got it.
And
Karla, I think you're back in the group. I see you.
Back in the
Awesome.
Sorry, it's in the audience, and to my fellow entrepreneurs, and to Mel.
So go ahead,
but I'm
Allison. You
back.
were saying something. I just wanted to let
Yeah, I
folks know.
was just going to piggyback on a comment that was just made, and to the point of how do we kind of bridge that communication gap? Because I think there are lots of different players, and people have different roles and different calendars, and that can vary from retailer to retailer, right? And so in some situations, you may have the category manager who's kind of taking the lead on what the calendar is going to look like and kind of helping to drive, where you're going to be placed. In other situations, it's kind of the diversity and equity team who may be seeking out entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
and introducing them to the category manager. But at the same time, I think what we understand for the most part, depending on the retailer and their size, they have a set calendar. And so it does become that scenario where, if the review is in September and you come in October, um, as great as your product and your marketing strategy may be, often we think, well, hey, our item can get cut in, or maybe there's an opportunity to kind of take advantage of something down the road. But as you mentioned before, you really are going to go get reset on that calendar. So the next time we're going to look at this, it may be a year from now. And so really it's kind of understanding, what the window of opportunity is. But I think at the same time, when you understand what the window of opportunity is there a program that you can tap into? And so I liked your comment about all the accelerator programs that are coming in. And I've seen those kind of come across my email. And sometimes I just wonder how many folks, how many businesses are applying to this? Is it kind of a black hole that you you apply, and what's the likelihood that once you take the time to submit all this information, you're going to get some feedback? So it's really kind of a different way, I think, and a different approach to doing business and getting your brand in front of a particular retailer. Um, so it's just and I think for some people it works, but there is that time that you have to invest in getting that information to them versus kind of the traditional route of, if you have a broker, trying to set up a call or just kind of meeting that retailer on your own. So I think there are just really a lot of different ways that items can get introduced to a retailer. But at the end of the day, the question becomes, as you so aptly put it, how do you get, how do you establish those partnerships so that you grow and that you're not just kind of sitting on the shelf?
Yeah, so a statement was made in one of the, I'll just say, random retailer meetings we were in, and it kind of stuck with me. And the whole point was around, well, all right, do we really understand what business we're in? Because they're the marketing things, and then there's the production things. And as a retailer, you still live by what's on the shelf, right? You almost live through winning the hearts and minds of the people in the community that walk in front of your shelf or order stuff out of your store and have it delivered to their house. And it seems that connection is not there. So you have a lot of folks, you mentioned in accelerator programs, a lot of those are national, right? That doesn't help you any because they might run it in the market you're not in. And you might even win, but you can't get on the shelf. So the marketers get what they want. The store doesn't get what they want.
Exactly.
And then you don't get what you want. So it seems like in a lot of cases, it's just a lot of bad connections being made just based on folks not understanding the business they're in. So accelerators run a lot from, my past life, software and tech and things like that, which have nothing to do with a shelf or communities or anything. So you can't really plug that into a retail environment and have brands off the shelf plug into it. It kind of just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You also can't run diversity and inclusion without having a product attached to it if you're a retailer. That doesn't work. The marketers can say everything they want to, but if a calendar exists out there from on a merchandising or product standpoint, they got 200 dates, they need to make napkins for it. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to make a napkin for every single. And by the time the marketing people figure it out, it could be right, it could be wrong, but it's going to be on the shelf anyway. So it doesn't matter. So it seems like everyone needs to take a step back and just understand, what business are you in? How can I help you? How can we work together? And then everybody can take the same step forward. And it just stuck with me because I was like, yeah, I actually never really asked, do the marketing guys know like what retailers do? Does merchandising know what the marketing people are doing? Do you even know there's a brand accelerator with brands in it that you're supposed to promote this month? You just have a date that you're supposed to like print and stuff. And it seems like none of those folks are talking to each other or in lockstep. And it kind of, I'll just say, runs downhill to you guys. And then you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? This promo doesn't line up with what I have, or those aren't the SKUs I have in that store. Like, it literally has gotten that bad on the product side with some of the retailers. So, I mean, is that something where it would help if these companies kind of had councils that consisted of a lot of the manufacturers like yourself that would be able to help them deal better with small businesses, specifically Black businesses? Because in a lot of cases, those seem to be the businesses that are being left out. It's the small and the minority-owned businesses.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I think that Mario made a good point. And, one of the ways that you can, get up to speed on a council is talking to the suppliers that you already have in the store, because I think they can provide, lots of insight and experience about, what their experience is in terms of connecting, communicating, promoting their items. And so when you have suppliers that you're currently working with, it just seems reasonable that that's a logical place to start. And then you can grow from that. I think, or my experience has been that, and particularly on the food side, and I would imagine in other sectors, in hair care, it may be the same thing if you're dealing with a retailer, whatever the issue is, people have a similar issue. So if it's an issue related to, how can you take advantage of opportunities to co-brand with maybe other retail partners that with other, I'd say, product manufacturers that retailer is also doing business with. If there are opportunities that retailer can be a liaison for. So they may be able to identify other major companies that may want to come alongside smaller brands and, co-promote, co-market if there's that opportunity. That's an issue. But I think at the same time, if you start with the brands that you have, you have an instant counsel, because many of those brands are probably facing the same types of challenges. And once those things are, addressed and identified, it's easier to use that as a launching pad to grow, whatever that campaign is, whatever that marketing strategy is. And so that would be my suggestion. I think it may be a little difficult to have kind of this universal, counsel. But I think, a great starting point would be with the brands that are already in, on shelf with a retailer.
Got it. So I promised I was going to bring this up at least once, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it. Wanted to talk D2C and Amazon, just because I don't think you can really talk retail without saying Amazon something, because almost everybody uses it. Are you guys all set up on any marketplace platforms like Amazon, Walmart, eBay, any of those things where you're selling like direct to consumer at a decent volume? That is awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a beautiful
And I hope
thing
I don't.
because normally the answer is no. At least in a lot of the forums I've been in. I can hear you,
The
Karla.
storm. Yes, okay. I'm gonna tell you guys what's going on is the thunder is getting closer and closer, and I see lights going off every different place. But anyway, yes, we are on Amazon, and actually they have a program for African American vendors that if you're not part of it, you should look into it because it's an excellent opportunity. And 2021, we were named one of their innovative families. And they had several African American brands that they named, and they would have just appear, you know, how you're searching on Amazon, and they would just appear in little stories about them. So when we were 2020, we were their number one relish in the world because of the marketing that we had created. And we also happened, our cousin Oprah made us one of her favorite things. So we got these tons of business from Amazon. And also, we had already figured out we were going to be on Good Morning America. So, strategy behind was for us to tell our family story. And each of you all have your story that is, you are your best salesperson, best marketing person. And just little stories about your family or about, okay, this is what we're struggling with right now. We're trying to do this. What do you all think? And we just put questions and things out there, like maybe little 30-second clips that we would show this is what's going on at Winfrey Foods during the pandemic. Of course, they're running out of jars, they're running out of boxes and everything. And people were, you know, feeding and coming back and forth. So it served as a marketing tool for us, actually. We also do a lot of things with Tennessee State University before the pandemic. And the kids were our marketers, the football team, because we fed them for 2 weeks. So they're sending out messages across the country to other kids. Look what we're getting to eat, blah, 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 blah. One kid, I knew his parents, he said, you won't believe what we had. We had this, we had one of those hams like grandmother had, and we had relish with it with the pineapple and cherry, and they're showing pictures of all this stuff. So they serve as ex-marketers. And one of my friends, I know Karla, he says, no, you don't know this lady. They have purple shirts. They come in. They do all this. We get everything. Even that potato salad, it's spelled out Tennessee State on it. She said, I know I went to high school with her. So church people, if you're a fraternity or sorority, neighborhood organizations, because they can go into the store and ask if your product is not in there. Where is the mamba sauce? Where is I want this? And so all of a sudden, also tie in with your agriculture department, with your state, because that's how we initially got in our first store, which before we got in the store, I said, we're going to get in Publix first. And that's what happened, but it came through the Department of Agriculture had an event, and it's not an event that they advertise everybody. Our manufacturer told us about it. So we get there, and there's about 3 people of color out of 50 people. And you have to do the renegade because they said they're not tasting any samples. And I'm like, okay, this is a food show. What do you mean you're not tasting any samples? They're not tasting the samples. They're just going to take your product back. So I was like, you know what? The Publix is here. This is the condiments. I'm going to stand there with a plate and say, you need to taste this chicken salad. And nobody else did it because they were told you can't do it. But I was like, what can happen? And the man stood there and talked to us 20 minutes. He talked to everybody else too. So those type of opportunities, what can your product go with that people don't traditionally think it would go with? Because that's how you have to sell it to the store. I mean, we're people make relish, but you make Chow Chow made getting a new twist. You can make chicken salad, you can hot dog, you can run brats. Oh, this is a gourmet product that's going to cost more, but you can use it with more things instead of having all these other things. So that was the sale. How many things we can make this? What about this? And then we talking about partners. We were using Duke's Mayo to make our chicken salad, and we ended up having to visit with them at their manufacturing company. But a lot of the stuff with marketing, because we're not trillionaires yet, so we have to say, use what you have. what do you have that you can create a buzz with? So, and then coming on MOBE Monday, that's we got our big break with the fresh market because of Kevin Miller, the
Mm-hmm. I think we might have lost you there, Karla. I think I still caught the part about Kevin Miller, who's an awesome dude. He is a
think
friend
I'm
of
back
mine.
again. But
Okay,
shout
there you
out
go.
to Mo before we were on Christmas special, and their chief marketing officer was there. Everybody that was on there did talk about their product, and because of Moby, he said Winfrey Foods is going to be in my store, and a year later we were in there.
That's awesome. That is awesome. But that definitely is the type of pickup we need to have from our retailers for products like you guys. I'm going to bring up something specifically around Unilever and Vaseline brand. Not necessarily because I want to hate on Unilever and the Vaseline brand, but mainly because it blew up my feeds, my personal feeds, like in a way where I was just like, who in the heck just discovered Vaseline? And I'm only saying that because I feel like there are a lot of applications, to your point, Karla, where you can use products that we've been using for years in applications for food and other that other folks just don't know about. And actually, in once again, one of the personal stories for me, we actually helped launch a product called Tahini in a former life in LA to almost introduce it to the US. But if you're from Mexico, you know exactly what it is because you basically use it on everything. You put it on fruit, you put it on it's different flavors of it, like different things like that. And to the US market, for basically people who were not either US Hispanic and had been introduced to it or Mexican in particular, this was like a new thing. But in the LA market, it was almost like a return to home for folks who were actually from Mexico City, different places like that. My thought has always been, can we use our own enclaves to kind of supercharge the launch or pickup of different products we have? Because I really think when everyone's gone to this hyper local kind of product um, delivery method, we could really pick up a lot of stuff where somebody like Instacart literally will tell people, hey, everybody down south, they got Texas Pete. They're not hitting on such and such hot sauce. Like literally you'll know what we're ordering or like how we're ordering different or the different like product patterns, and we could take advantage of it. Is that something you guys have kind of either gotten from retailers or looked to do with retailers? The best product example I can even think of is people in Philly and Scrapple for those that eat pork. Like literally, you can't find Scrapple kind of outside of Philly, and when you do, you feel like you want a treasure hunt or something. Like, oh my God, they got Scrapple and Lidl. You calling your friends, you texting somebody, you hitting somebody on Facebook or whatever. And I feel like all of our products have that love for them, no matter where we are. So I wanted to find out, are there ways that you guys are trying to pick up and leverage that? Have brands or partners come and talk to you about leveraging things like that outside of the community? Or has it just been the community, like the frats, the sororities, the schools? Have any of the brands looked to kind of do efforts like that with you?
Well, yes, but I always say that we too, meaning us, we have to take the initiative too and just keep on, because I was bold enough to ask. I got some feedback, but not a lot. A major retailer, could we do private label with our products? Because I asked them in this event that they had, how many people do you have in your company of color that do private label? There was silence. This is a big, big company. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. You make a lot of stuff in the African American community that could be a private label product. So I'm going to continue. And once I get in, I'm going to say, what about this person? Because that's how we do it. So whatever your product is. For instance, I love the mamba sauce, and I always think of Hawaiian stuff, and I always think of those prepackaged lunches and dinners that all the grocery stores are doing now, and they have those little cups that they put in there with the salad stuff. Why can't they put that in there? But you have to ask them because they're not going to think about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but that's the
Right.
type of stuff.
And
No, go ahead, Karla. You were breaking up.
because that's the type of thing that can go. They can put in that little black serving cup, like they put guacamole and all those other things in there. Now, what we're trying to do is, because we're in the stadium and we're trying to do hockey, we want to do a lot of NFL stuff. We're in the luxury boxes with our jars, and they also use our 64 to make the potato salad. But we want to do the single serving cups, and that's a great venture, a big step for us, because it is a major economic major thing. So we have to, say, okay, how many people do we need to talk to first before we can take that step? Because we know, because people want that single serving, like you see at places like Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, those little things. So it's like, let's build our brand so people say they want it like that. But a lot of products that we have, you mentioned hot sauce and all that stuff, as people are doing those fresh meals, packaged meals, they can put it in that little black cup, and they can use some of those things with because that's becoming bigger and bigger. If you guys notice, the fresh meals that are prepped there, like they have it's prepped.
No, definitely. I mean, I think with the whole outset of ghost kitchens, you guys should be included in those, right? Like, so in a past life, I worked with McCormick, right? And McCormick probably makes $100 million a year just off of picking which sauce they're going to provide for a QSR provider, right? Not like all of them, just one, right? And I feel like those types of opportunities, while it's cool to get a celebrity to sponsor something like that, being able to actually put the product in the packaging with the food is probably more impactful to us as a community, both financially and socially, because we start to see ourselves in these places. And then if you want to put like a Megan Thee Stallion on or whoever, then awesome. But like, you already got our actual product in there.
That's a great point. I mean, there's so many different. Oh, I'm sorry. There's so many different channels when you think of retail. To your point, and as Karla was saying, you can also think of convenience stores. There's just so many different mobile channels and places that product can be sold, and it's going to vary a little bit. The other thing that Karla sparked was just simply the fact that these buyers, as Allison also said, these retailers, the marketing people, they are so overwhelmed with so many different things. One of the best things perhaps that we can do is come to them with an idea, and maybe they haven't thought about it, maybe they haven't, but chances are that idea that we present to them is going to help them increase their volume and whatever it is that they're looking for, whether it's outreach, whether it's units sold, and just coming to them with an idea, whether it's through a product or a product repackage, or even simply in a brand style. That's something that's going to, hopefully shed a little bit of light to them.
Got it. I think that a lot of the kind of combo we've been having around product, and I'll just call it product innovation, packaging, different things like that. I think those types of conversations, or that type of brass tacks 365 type stuff, would get the retailers to a place where they're not really doing appropriation, or I'll just say cookie cutter approaches to the different things like cultural holidays, because then you'll already have like a tool set in place or a team in place. Like, hey, we just wanted to come here and say, is Juneteenth in Philly different than Juneteenth in Texas? And, somebody would tell them, yeah, it is different in Philly. Or at least have a place for people, especially I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I did. There was a whole denial, I'll just say until this year, of professional Black people to admit or not admit that like they actually knew anything about Juneteenth. And I forgot the name of the brother who ran it. He runs an HR firm that's just for DEI. And he just admitted, he said, look, this year is the first time anybody's ever asked me, what am I doing for Juneteenth? And I'm 50. He said, no one's ever asked me what I'm doing for Juneteenth. And he said, that might just be me. That just might be my circle. But I had to put it out there because I'm running a diversity, equity, and inclusion company. And this is new to me too. And I'm Black. So I think for things like that, is that something where you guys, at least even from a product standpoint, where it kind of felt uncomfortable with Juneteenth or any holiday, honestly? Like, I'll just say my personal experience was around Kwanzaa, because it's like I was 20 years into Christmas when they created Kwanzaa. So I was like, well, wait a second, like, what's that? And I had to learn about it, you know. Then now my kids want to celebrate it. So it was an area of awkwardness for me, even as a Black man. So is that a thing where, you know, everybody is kind of in the same place of comfort with that? Or are folks okay with talking about it? I'll make sure you guys get a link to that story too, because it was an eye-opening story for me, just in the fact that dude came out in the New York Times and said that, and that's stuff we don't do, right? Like that. Just talking about how now it's a time for all of us to come together and create whatever this new national platform is supposed to be together without feeling awkward about just coming to the party. Is that something you guys kind of saw when your brands were kind of celebrating things like this from community even? And then, like, if so, how did you guys address?
You know, I don't think that comment really surprises me. I think that, you know, when you talk about cultural holidays, the people who celebrate the cultural holidays may be well aware of it, and that could vary neighborhood by neighborhood, state by state. I was aware of Juneteenth. I had heard of Juneteenth, you know, decades ago, although I would say that, you know, here in Chicago, you know, in terms of, you know, what the celebration was, it might have been more, you know, in a particular community, not really a citywide celebration. Whereas, you know, in Texas or in some of the southern states, you know, it has a bigger profile. And so I think personally that, you know, the most important part of it is really just the education piece, because, you know, just from a general market standpoint, you know, I think there are lots of African Americans who have heard of it. I think there are probably lots of African American consumers who had never heard of it, because it wasn't something that was necessarily, you know, celebrated within their communities. They may have heard about it just as a point of fact, you know, Juneteenth, Juneteenth, this is the date of Juneteenth, this is what it represents. But, you know, incorporating it as a special celebration, you know, may not have been part of, you know, that dynamic. So I think, to me, specifically speaking about Juneteenth or any other cultural holiday, you know, and when you're talking about, well, how does that align with retail partners that you have? It may or may not, it may not align, because it may not be something that is broadly celebrated. It may be something that is celebrated differently, city to city, state to state. And so I think the thing that's important about it to me is just really kind of educating consumers about what it is, educating people about how they might celebrate it, and then using it to shine a light on, you know, African American businesses, because, you know, part of, you know, our heritage and part of our celebration is always, you know, how do we progress, you know, at every level? How do we progress educationally? How do we progress economically? And so how can we as African American business owners, even, you know, in my mind, if there isn't a celebration, you know, in your specific area, how do you kind of come together and collaborate and create a meaningful celebration that then you may be able to take to a retailer and say, hey, this is a way that we can kind of partner, you know, in this area. and bring some more attention, to the significance of this cultural event, as well as, figure out, how to shine a light on African American businesses that may be a part of that. So I'm not really surprised that there are, that 50% of the people have heard about it and maybe 50% of the people haven't. And some of that to me is just, kind of the level of civic engagement that we have just as a country, in terms of people just kind of knowing the history about stuff in general. So
that is true. But I'm glad that you said that, because another thing that kind of happened, I'll just say in the last 2 or 3 years of brands trying to figure out, that as some of my youngins talk about in my shop, they're like, these dudes are like trying to get right in like 20 seconds, and they've spent like over 200 years getting it wrong. And I said, yeah, that's kind of about right. But the thing that I've
That's
noticed,
a great statement.
Look, it came from a 28-year-old.
Right.
I was in shock. Right. I was like, wait, what? I need to record this. So the thing that they kind of called out that we noticed was specifically around how Black companies, celebrate cultural moments. And I said the American people have kind of been trained to do it opposite the way we work. So we want to talk about our cultural moments. We want to introduce you to our cultural moments. We want to educate our own people on our cultural moments. And the best way I can even describe the difference is how you would see things like Hispanic Heritage Month. So we talked about brands like Goya and other brands like that. We said they never talk about Hispanic Heritage Month. The white people do. And we just don't work that way. Like, we want to talk about our stuff. Whereas companies like Goya, who are based in Spain, who are still very important to the U.S. Hispanic market, don't talk about Hispanic Heritage Month because it's not really a thing for them. They don't feel the need to educate their people and their community specifically about that month. Whereas for us, we want to educate everybody about our cultural moments because we haven't had a chance to talk about many of them, especially not in a positive way. So I think for corporations, they've been trained that we have to talk about this. And when in a lot of cases, they just have to provide a platform for, honestly, their partners to talk about it, like their supplier partners, their communication partners, their media partners. And they're just not really good at it, I guess is the best way I can put it. Providing the platform and getting out of the way.
And I think, to someone's point, it's a learning process. I mean, and speaking of Juneteenth particularly, not everyone is aware. And as Allison mentioned, people celebrate in different ways, different parts of the country. Now it's a federal holiday. There's another deal of awareness, but just from from one Black company's perspective, that's why we went through that process. As you mentioned, also, we haven't always seen ourselves in the positive light when it comes from other places. But that's literally why we, with some risk, wanted to come out with that brand of products under the name Juneteenth Joy, because it's literally about celebration and it's literally about acknowledgement. And so when we talk about those moments of education and moments of conversation, well, one of the places that we do that in the best way is with food and around family, whether it's church, whether it's you were talking about your kids the other day, and that's where, from our perspective, as a company, I'm a Lincoln University grad. My wife is a Tuskegee grad. My son is a Lincoln University grad. So we're an HBCU family. And again, although there was some risk with it, to be honest, I want to protect our legacy like we protect our kids. When I recruit students, I kind of go with that philosophy of PPL: protect, preserve, and lift. And that's the way we approach students to bring them into the fold. And that's what we're trying to do with Juneteenth Joy. We want to protect, preserve, and lift. And again, we are, as you mentioned, we're here in America. Great opportunities, but there's also a history. And if we don't step in to claim our narrative, right? If we don't step in and work together to claim our business, somebody else will do it. And maybe other groups don't have to do it that way, but maybe that's one of the ways that we can have the greatest success. So you bring up some great points, but it's a unique space, but that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it.
And I would just add to that. I think while there may be major companies that don't see a need to do it, I think retailers do see a need to do it, because retailers see it as an opportunity to speak directly to a consumer group that shops with them. And so, while Goya may not say, oh, this is something that we need to tell a story about, retailers celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, because those consumers, the consumer is important to them. And so acknowledging to the consumer that, we understand what your traditions are, and we understand, we want to let you know that we are trying to incorporate goods and services and products that are a part of your tradition. You can come here and get it. And so I think to Mario's point is, helping the retailer, working with the retailer to help them tell our stories with our products and with our services. We do have to make a contribution to that narrative, so it doesn't become, just an opportunity to merchandise product, but also an opportunity to educate the consumer, the African-American consumer that's coming in looking for, trying to identify products that are made by African-American that are African-American brands, and also those general market consumers whose tastes are varied. They are interested in experimenting with different flavors and different cultures. So, it's an opportunity to introduce culture and brands to those consumers. So retailers really are interested, because that's part of their programming. They want to appeal to different cultures, Hispanic culture, Polish American citizens, Asian American, African American, and we have to help them. We have to help as the supplier to provide the narrative for them to do that.
Got it. So one last question for you guys. In order to do those things as a supplier, to kind of help these retailers build a better narrative, or even tell a better narrative, so that the consumers will feel more of that connection, are there other partners that are within our community that you think would actually help you build that for any of these retailers? And that could be media, it could be other orgs. Like, is there anybody else that you think could kind of step in to also assist in helping retailers kind of help us guide them in telling that narrative?
I can tell you for sure that your local minority supplier, Diversity, the national, we're part of the Tri-State Minority Supplier Development Council. They have actually written letters for us. And I'll just tell you guys, this happened real quick. Please develop a relationship with them and be active with them. February, we got a call one morning that said, Papa John's is looking for African-American vendors. And, we have a relationship with you all. I don't know what this is about, but I'm giving you the number to call this lady. I called her, and you guys, she said, I need to get 60 jars of your product for 60 CEOs and very high profile individuals. They were making gift boxes. Of course, that's a no-brainer. You're going to do that. And you're going to name a couple of other people that that may have some stuff that we know they probably don't have. And that was the start of a relationship, because as we're talking to them, I'm like, well, this is wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. And we really appreciate it. And they start telling me some of the people were. And then I said, well, you know what? After we do this, I want to talk to you guys and your executive chefs about what we can do with our Nashville hot topping, because it was like a hit across the country for people outside of Nashville. And they said, I'm interested in that. And a few weeks later, I was going to Atlanta, and I called her back and said, hey, I'm going to be in Atlanta. Let me give you some extra boxes for your chefs. So we're looking forward to developing a relationship with them with that. So the Minority Supplier Council connected us. They also have written letters for us and invited us to the one here, the Tri-State organization here. They're having stuff every week that you can get involved in, and you meet people and other people that may say, I can't do anything with your product, but I've got a friend that's over in this company and they make the decisions. So that's worked really well with us by networking with people like that. And also, you said other local people would be each state has a chamber of commerce, and they do gifting, and the people that are involved in it are generally big business people who have other events. And so that's how we get other opportunities too, by giving them a gift or saying, you know what, this guy's on the soccer board. We're trying to get in soccer. We're always looking in the business section and meeting people everywhere we go. It's like you're a walking billboard, basically, and just talking to people.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for taking part in the panel today. I'm going to throw it back to Yvonne just for final announcements and whatnot. But thank you guys for spending time with me today, talking about your businesses. I love doing this stuff. Yvonne, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Mel. This was fantastic. So appreciative for how you facilitated such an exciting conversation. I did want to tell the audience a little bit about you since you introduced all the other panelists. Mel Wilson is the founder of Solve Innovation Group, offering guidance to various companies on tech equity and bias, championing diversity, investment, and innovation in the MarTech, biotech, and fintech sectors. Melvin has run strategy and research for IPG Media Lab, worked with hundreds of brands, and brought successful tech brands and products to market. I want everyone to join us for MOBE Mondays on a weekly basis. Next week, Monday, August 15th, we will be discussing copyright compliance for churches. We got to get our churches together, y'all. Worship services are widely virtual now, and we must learn the rules to comply with the law, as well as compensate creatives. Sometimes volunteering is everything. We all want to be servants, but yes, this service is something that should also be validated for their expertise. So you tell your worship leaders at your church to tune in and join the conversation with MOBE Mondays. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for joining, and good night.